This episode is brought to you by VW Trends Magazine. Check them out for all the latest trends in the VW scene at www.vwtrendsmagazine.com. Good morning and welcome to the show. My name is Sean Smith.
And my name is Prescott Phillips, and this is Brew City Bug Talk.
Welcome back to the show. Hey, how's it going today, Prescott?
It's going great today. Sun is shining for once.
I know it's finally nice weather here in Wisconsin, which I am glad.
Yeah, everything's turning green. It's everybody's getting all hyped up to bring their cars out.
I got my Beetle. I got her out this weekend, and I drove it around.
Did it fire right up?
It took a little bit of work. The fuel, I drained the carburetor over the winter, so I had to get fuel up there, and and then my battery. The battery was kind of dead, so I kind of had to throw it on a charger, wait for that. And it was just a little back and forth.
I pull all my batteries out.
Yeah, but I mean, it worked. I got started up, and then I was going to drive it over this morning.
Really?
I go to start it. There's something wrong with the starter. I'm like, oh my God. I was like,
never fails.
This is my day. Whatever.
So you're not going to bring it to Cars and Coffee in a couple weeks here?
It'll probably be up and running, but it should be up and running.
So locally here, there's it's going to be probably one of the first Cars and Coffees of the, the season, the wonderful Wisconsin car show season. It's like 3 weeks long. But the Pegasus Racing Equipment does one in the fall and does
in
one
New Berlin,
spring.
Wisconsin here,
yeah,
right?
So it's like 5 minutes from my house. So they're going to have a Cars and Coffee on Saturday the 27th.
Yep.
So that's 8 o'clock. So anybody local in Wisconsin.
Or if you want to drive here from out of state, you're more than welcome to.
We'll be there.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to bring the Speedster.
Okay.
So
hopefully it's a nice day and you can drive it.
Yeah, hopefully it's nice. I don't care if it's cold as long as it's not raining.
Yeah.
And then
the next day is the exciting because we get to go to another swap meet.
Yeah, there's a swap meet in Northern Illinois. The NEVA Club puts that on. NEVA, what does that stand for? Northern Illinois Volkswagen Association, I think.
Yeah, I believe you're right.
Yeah.
Way to be prepared for the show.
Yeah, they they put on a swap meet. I don't know how many years this has been going, like 11, 12 years maybe. But it gets bigger every year, which is exciting. So I already registered to have a spot there. It's indoors, which is nice, so rain or shine.
And the best part, it's not a 5-hour drive like the Michigan buggy builders.
No, this is 2 hours, I think. I got my spot. I'll bring some books.
Bring whatever parts we didn't sell at the last show.
Yeah, I'll bring some parts to sell. This show is kind of neat. You don't even have to bring tables. They supply tables and everything. Yeah.
Oh,
and it's cheap to get in. But like I said, it gets bigger every year. So
yeah, but we'll be there and we'll have a booth. Stop on by, say hello.
So who's our guest today?
Our guest today is one of your special guests.
Yeah, he's been a lifesaver to me, actually.
Hey, everybody. I'm Mario Velotta from the Dub Shop up here in Seattle, Washington.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Welcome.
So is the sun shining there, or is it raining every day?
Well, it's not raining today, or at least right now. It's
not yet.
Raining.
So
not yet. Give it some time.
Yeah. So you're in Monroe. Where is that for people that don't know where Monroe is?
Yes, I'm about, let's say, 20 minutes north of Seattle, so towards Canada.
Towards Canada from Seattle. Perfect. Well, we have Canadian listeners, so
yeah, we actually
maybe some
we got a couple of
people.
Canadian listeners,
so that's cool. And
we're right at the border there for Vancouver.
Awesome. Now you're the owner, operator, founder of the Dub Shop, and
give us a little background. What is the Dub Shop?
Yeah, what is it? When did it start? Why?
So, I mean, I've been into Volkswagens for quite a long time. It started, back when forums were popular.
Oh yeah,
the Samba, Cowlook, Shop Talk, all those, and it's great because everybody, I met a lot of my friends through those forums, and now like customers and stuff like that. Just because I started out, I wanted to do fuel injection for myself. That was, everybody was sharing ideas, so it just turned into a business.
Yeah,
very cool.
And it was like nowhere to go. For information. everybody's starving for information about do-it-yourself fuel injection.
But what got you into Volkswagens?
I would say when I was growing up, pretty young, my dad had a couple of Baja bugs that I remember. I've lived around Seattle for most of my life. We did move down to California for a couple years, traveling. My dad was doing construction at the time, so there was a job that he had to go to. When we came back from there, I remember we had one of the old station wagons. He hauled one of the Bajas back on the back of the station wagon attached to it.
Okay, so he was like towing it with the station wagon?
Tow bar style, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, flat towing. Hell yeah.
Flat towing it all the way from California back up here. And I was pretty young, so I don't remember a lot about it, but I do remember I was probably 4th or 5th grade, snow day at school, and he had come to pick me up, jumped in the car, and he started doing, donuts in the school parking lot when he picked me up.
Hell yeah.
And that was a memory that stuck with me until now, which, was really fun.
So you're in 4th, 5th grade, and what year was the vehicle?
I couldn't tell you.
No. But it was.
I wasn't into them really at the time.
Yeah, but
that's like your first memory of being involved with Volkswagens.
I love the memories that start when you're very young and they don't go away. I love that.
Yeah. Then there's the second memory from Volkswagens.
Okay.
It's probably still true to this day for some people. One of the Bajas that he had, it leaked so much oil that he just had a baling wire pie tin underneath basically under the sump, under the bottom of the engine.
Yep.
And would just catch all the oil and just refill the engine with that oil that came out.
Just poured it back in.
It's called recycling.
Wow.
Yeah, it's good for the environment.
So it's like an engine diaper.
What would be your first Volkswagen that you purchased yourself?
So the first one I had, I guess out of high school, I started with a Toyota pickup. I sold that and got a Honda Civic. And then I totaled my Honda Civic. I rear-ended somebody on the freeway at night. And that was totaled.
Oops.
So the only thing I could afford was a bug, and I believe it was like a 71 standard. And that got me by. And I didn't know anything about air-cooled engines at the time, so I just drove them around like every other car. And I think I had to go through probably 4 more bugs because I would just ruin the engine, and I would buy another bug for the engine and put that one in my car.
Well, yeah, that's like all of our guests on the show. You don't plan on being a Volkswagen mechanic
until you own a Volkswagen.
Until you own one, and you end up fixing it. You end up hoarding them and collecting them, and you have one Volkswagen. Well, what's the difference? You have 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, but back in the day, they were a lot cheaper, and you could just this one broke.
And so
universal. Just buy another one.
If you didn't really, it didn't really matter what year it was. If the motor ran in it, you could stuff it in anything. So that's what you did to get by.
Yeah, I didn't know swing axle, IRS, single port, dual port, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When you get a bug, they always come with a book. So it's I was reading all the books and just trying to learn about all the stuff, but I was still young, and I wasn't really automotive-ish at the time. I was into car audio. That's what I really liked to do.
And that was that era also. I remember, because me and you, Mario, kind of grew up. We're roughly the same age. And so we kind of grew up in the same era. And I just remember my teenage years to early 20s, that was popular back then. Everybody was building these giant sound systems. You'd go to car shows and they'd have sound competitions.
Yeah,
and,
why didn't that end up being your route? Car stereos in cars that didn't appeal to you?
I did. I did that from 97-ish till 2012 when I was done with car audio.
Did you own your own shop, or were you working for somewhere?
Nope, I worked for Car Stereo Plus.
Okay.
I worked there for out of high school. That's because I would just spend all my time there. And then finally I got a job.
That's usually how it works. You hang out there so much. You're like, do you just want to work here? You're here every day anyways. And
I was there always bugging them for a job. So, again, my whole family was they're all construction and woodworkers. So me doing electronics and fabrication stuff was completely out of the realm. So I just didn't know about it much.
I can see
and so
that.
Just going into cars, that was when I really started working on them, was out of high school. So car audio for a lot of years. There was a couple years I worked for my dad doing construction because he was a general contractor.
Sure.
He was doing tenant improvement. So office buildings down in Seattle, he was remodeling them. So I did that. I did some demo work and, basic building things for there, but it wasn't, that wasn't my passion. So
no, you gotta follow your dream.
Yeah. So I went back to, car audio again, and pretty much stayed in car audio until 2012 when I started doing this full time.
So how does that translate into, I mean, I get it, it's electronics and stuff, but how do you transition from car audio to fuel injection? It doesn't, I mean, it seems relatable, but really not.
It's just the electronics. So there's two kinds of people. There's the kind of people that like to wrench, and there's the people that like to wire. Mm-hmm. Being a wire guy, I was into Volkswagens again. So I had all the Volkswagens that I had stereos in those, and just sick and tired of carburetors. And so around...
Yeah, I was going to ask you, were there other people out there in the industry putting injection systems on Volkswagens at the time, or how did
it was real new. So that's where, Shop Talk forums, I spent a lot of time on there, talking to people and getting ideas and seeing what had been done.
Like CB was one of the first manufacturers of a kit, 100%. So what version were they on when you stepped in? Were they still on the 2-knob?
Gosh, I don't even know, because it was so early.
Did you start building injection kits before you created the Dub Shop, or were you started Dub Shop then?
So around 2000, I would say, is when I started into fuel injection, like wanting to do it on my car.
Okay.
So Shop Talk forums, all that stuff. What I got into was Mega Squirt, which is the brand, and they were doing group buys back on Yahoo Groups. Mm-hmm. When that was a thing. My friend Fred Hastings was also, he had a Volkswagen, lived close to me. He found that there was group buys, and so this was the second group buy that they had done. And so we both bought ECUs that you had to assemble yourself. So they just gave you the instructions, a bag of parts, and then you put it together.
Now explain to our viewers what Mega Squirt is, that whole system, because it's not really a brand per se. It's not a company. It's freeware. It's
so it kind of started out as open source ish, but it's not anymore. It's a commercial. It is a commercial company. So the owners are Bowling and Grippo, B&G. They're the people who started creating it at first. Right. They're the ones that did the group buy, and then everybody after that is just reselling their stuff. So Mega Squirt is Mega Squirt, Micro Squirt. There's other brands, and then other people have bought the licensing to do offshoots. So like the Mega Squirt 3 Pro, EFI Source Gold Box, they bought licensing from Bowling and Grippo to do their own version, but using like the same software.
Now, is the software editable? Like, are you able to go in there and change stuff within the software once you have it?
There's two sides to this, because it has a firmware that is set, and so there's the developers that do all the firmware. Mm-hmm. And then the software side, so that the user interface, you're able to tune the ECU like anything else. It's, come leaps and bounds from where it was back then, because it's, been going for 20 years.
So, but it's super universal, because it can put fuel injection on any internal combustion engine on the planet, just by having the right drivers. And
so this software or this kit is not Volkswagen specific. Is that correct?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh. I'm just a silly person that wanted to do it.
Well, you found your niche.
Well, that's how the whole thing, how I met Mario was. I don't even remember what year it was, but my post-stock Volkswagen, I converted it from carburetors to fuel injection. And
I was still working at home at the time, so that was from 2012 to 2015, right. in that time frame.
Yeah, it was in that time frame. And my first system was, I had a S40 unit. It's a DTA is a company out of England. I don't remember what the name of their software was, but it was very user-friendly, and the system worked well, and the car made good power. But the customer support was horrible, because they were in the UK, and I think about at that time, DTA was like getting bought out by somebody or going out of business. And I had run into a bunch of problems with the drivers, injector drivers burning out and stuff. And I had spare units, and I couldn't even get the spares fixed. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way. So I started searching out another ECU of some sort. Then I got a hold of Mario, and Mario says, "Yeah, I'll build you whatever you want."
Yeah. So back then, I think you probably found me from the Samba, because I had a lot of ads on the Samba.
I was just gonna ask that. How did you end up finding
that?
Yeah. So okay.
Yeah, this is pre Facebook. It was still forum. Yeah, either on the Samba or Shop Talk forums.
So this is pre-dub shop. You were working out of your house doing this.
Well, so I started, the dub shop. It was just kind of, I was doing these kits from the forum. So I had, developed my own little system, got it to work on my car, and then that just started growing interest. So
you were just building ECUs for the most, and then kind of telling people, well, you need to buy this, you need to buy that,
Correct. Yeah. It started with the ECUs once I figured out that I could sit down and build them. And at the time, it was basically the cheapest option. It started out with like an MS1.
Right. And
just real basic. So now MS2 and MS3 have come out. MS2 is still pretty current. They still, support all the software. Yep. And then Megasquirt 3 is like their newest with all the features and functions. And it just kind of, it steps, it's been in sequence for how they've come out with stuff. And, even today, it's still like the features and functions are still pretty capable. They are lacking a couple things like drive-by-wire, like built-in Lambda sensors, stuff like that for monitoring your O2 sensors.
I'm still running MS2. And it still runs great. This is just a testament to how well this whole system, your ECU and the rest of it all work. This is 10 years later. This is still in my car. It still works great. It's amazing,
You don't have to do anything. And in those 10 years, they've come out with...
I didn't have to...
probably...
Now, if I wanted...
The firmware version is... probably real far back there.
Yeah, the firmware is pretty far back. I have to keep updating the tuner software.
So that's basically just to plug in your computer and be able to adjust things.
Yeah, that's so you can tune. You can tune, but the actual firmware and the actual hardware it's all the same.
So that's kind of I was going to ask that. So back then you were building these ECUs, and then the customers would come to you, basically give you the shopping list of what they have, and you would you tune these ECUs to their equipment, or would they need to go out and buy specific things for the ECUs that you were selling?
Yeah, so we'll back up a little bit so the forums again, how Prescott found me.
Yeah,
but still, like I was at nights and weekends, I would be building the ECUs, making wire harnesses, putting together parts, and I did that for quite a few years before I even thought about stopping my day job. My wife had got a new job working for the city of Kirkland here. She had been there for a year. I was, just working every night and every weekend and just always doing something for the fuel injection, like doing this transition. She told me, I've been here for a year. They can't just fire me. So if you want to try to do this fuel injection and get away, just do it for yourself, then now's the time. So we started looking around in town for shops, shop spaces and stuff like that. Chose to do it from home, and I did that for 3 years.
Now at that time, was it still just ECUs and wire harnesses, or did you develop your whole kits at that point?
Yeah, still to this day, I'm still developing stuff.
Okay.
Back then, a lot of people would get, Megasquirt had a really bad rap back in the day because everybody would just go to the junkyard and pick all these parts out of cars. Well, you don't know if it's good, bad. You don't know if it's going to work with the ECU.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, every Ford Escort got that coil pack.
Is that why you had a Dodge coil in your car?
No, it's because I was going.
There was the Ford Edis.
Yeah.
The Ford Edis system, which was like a standalone ignition, basically, that the ECU could talk to. And that's what everybody did to go crank trigger because it was easy and you could just go buy these parts and hook it up and it made it work.
Yeah, it was super basic and it worked pretty flawlessly. Yep. But my system's rather basic. It's wasted spark, nothing cool.
What is wasted spark for our listeners and me? Because I don't know what that means.
So wasted spark, you just get away from a distributor, so you don't have a point, so you don't have the condenser, you don't have a single coil, but you have a coil with 4 posts now. Each spark plug gets its own spark plug wire, and you can pull the distributor out, put a plug in there, take the gear out because some people have not taken the gear out. It just replaces all the moving parts of an ignition system and makes for very precise timing control, which is arguably more important than the fuel injection itself to have a solid ignition system.
Yeah, so at that time, what were you all selling that was your own?
So I was doing, so the ECUs was a big part, just because that was the backbone of everything. So I had to build all the ECUs, and I was building the wire harnesses, because people hate wiring. Yeah. So the more you can wire, the more attractive it is to people.
Gotcha.
So I was just building these universal fly and lead harnesses, pretty close to what I make today still. They're just a lot better now.
Yeah, you got all the fancy wiring stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Back in the day, you were making ECUs, you were making wire harnesses.
I was trying to get away from all the people using junkyard parts. So I was accumulating all these parts and pieces that I knew worked together because I tried everything on my car. My poor car has been
the test baby for
everything that I got. I would put in my car and try it and make sure it worked first before I, would actually sell it. So everything that I sell is usually tested by me.
Yeah, that one car has been your test mule. It's had every it's had NA, turbo, all of that stuff, right? All in the same car.
Yep. It's gone through a lot of transitions in its life.
It's what you got to do. Now that's before you bought a dyno. You have an engine dyno now and all that.
Yep. Yeah, that came again during like COVID time.
Now, are you actually selling kits yourself? Do you have complete kits that you manufacture that you sell out there, or are you still just bits and pieces?
Yeah, I do. I do everything. So on the dubshop.com, I sell all the parts that I make pretty much, and anything that goes into a kit, like a complete fuel injection package.
Give me a breakdown of your most popular kit and like what's all included with it.
My most popular thing is probably my crank trigger packages to convert all the EFI guys to crank trigger because nobody wants a distributor anymore. Why would you?
Yeah, distributors.
Yeah. So just
what
get rid
of
all those moving parts. Yeah, the crank trigger package is usually for a Type 1 would be either I supply a new pulley or you send in your pulley, and there's the tone wheel or the trigger wheel that gets machined into the backside, a bracket to mount it to your engine case, and the crank sensor. Which sends the information to the ECU for it to decode that. And then the Type 4, I have one for...
Now to back it up, is the ECU included in that package or...
That's just a standalone part.
Okay.
Because it's like most of my stuff is universal.
Okay.
Most everything fuel injection is universal. So you can get most parts from anything and make it work in one way or another.
Gotcha.
And that's, the fuel injection for air-cooled Beetle, I've just found all the parts that worked for us, and I've just started putting them all together.
Back in the day, you used to steal the Mexican Beetle stuff and make kind of a makeshift kit out of that, but that's kind of gone by the wayside.
I still do. It's really hard to get parts now because they don't make those anymore. So I started in my car. I started with the German EFI plenum that was like the alternator stand, but then you couldn't find parts for that anymore. And then so that turned into the Mexican EFI parts, which are really good for a stock motor. But the intake runners are just very small.
Yeah. And they're also very different than the American or German or whatever you want to call it. It's like night and day. So now your new kits, once you break down like a basic Type 1 kit, what's all included?
A basic Type 1 kit, I guess that would be, the Mexican one is probably the most basic because we're using a factory throttle body, a factory, center section, and the factory end castings and those fuel rails. It's good for somebody just looking to get away from carbs on a stockish size motor. You probably don't want to do a bigger cam than, say an Angle 100 in there. Mm-hmm. They make a lot of torque because of the small runners if you don't expect a lot of RPM out of the motor. I have had people put this on like a 2332 in a bus, and it works good for them because they don't turn a lot of RPM and they just need to push a lot of weight. So I think they get the advantage of those small runners at the lower RPM and the bigger engines.
Right.
I don't recommend it though. So that's why I started making my own center section with an aftermarket throttle body, would flow more air. And so far I've dynoed one here on my dyno, and Ace down in California at Ace Racing Engines. We both got about 130 horsepower out of a 2180. Real comfortable with that. I think it could go more if we had better end castings.
So that's your center section, factory end castings.
The CB fuel injected end castings.
Right, with the injectors in the casting. And a factory throttle body?
The throttle body is from VW Speed Shop in UK.
Okay.
Now, do you sell this as a kit on your website, or is this something you'd have to piece together?
I have the Mexican intake as a complete package. So it comes with all the intake hardware, the crank pulley, coil pack, wideband O2 sensor, air filter, wire harness. All that stuff is all in a package. I also do that for the intake manifold that I make, because it's just different parts. Now you just move them around. So I have the Type 4 kits. I have Type 1 kits with dual throttle bodies, Type 4 kits with dual throttle bodies. I don't have. Me and Jake Ravy are working on a single throttle body for his DTM kits through 3D printing, 3D scanning.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of that. That's amazing. It's crazy.
So I can 3D scan an engine and have know where all the bolt locations are. So then in CAD, I can pick up those points and then start creating parts off of that. Once I create the parts, we're able to 3D print them and fit them and make sure it works.
So then it only works with Jake's down the middle stub, right?
Yeah, for now, because he has some customers that need them, and I have a customer, so I've spent some time on it.
Now, are these kits pretty much plug and play? Like me or some of my listeners, if they wanna purchase something like this, but they're not super handy into the writing software and stuff like that, is this all something they can just bolt on? And is it? It's
as bolt on as I can make it. Because I don't have a complete wire harness like everybody else does, or more specifically like CB Performance and the guys using the Holley ECUs that come with a a universal plug and play harness. I keep it pretty universal just because nobody has the same thing. And
Gotcha.
With my harness, I have it all terminated except for what goes into the relay board, which is the transition from the wire harness to the ECU.
Okay.
So they're able to plug just every sensor in. They don't have to do any crimping or soldering or anything like that, and it goes into the labeled terminal strip that says the manifold air temp sensor goes here, the coolant temp sensor goes here, the crank sensor goes here, and then so they just run those wires into the car. They cut the wires to length, plug them into those spots. The wiring takes a couple hours, so it really brings that down. Installing throttle bodies is just like you would with carburetors, except you have to run the fuel lines, which is a little bit harder. In general, I think most anybody can do it with the just with the illustrations and the instructions that I provide.
Okay.
That hardest part is probably getting the new fuel feed to the back of the car, whatever that's in, unless you have a bus, because the tank is right there by the engine.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you still have to sync them just like you do carbs. But once you get them in sync, you don't really have to adjust them all the time like you do with carbs.
One thing I was going to ask you too, now online you offer a lot of services through your shop. Is this something like if somebody's bought your product and they've installed it, are they able to contact you and kind of get some help set up and stuff like that?
I'll do a startup tune for everybody, so the ECU comes ready, and the car should start once you have everything and tested everything.
Right.
And then I usually am pretty free with my time when somebody gets a package, because I know it's the first time for 95% of them. So
that's awesome. Yeah.
Through my installation packet, I call it the first start manual. I've tried to answer most questions and get people to where they can start the car. Or when they have questions, they reach out, call me, email me, whatever. I answer all the questions. After the car is running, all that kind of stuff, I do have services for if you don't want to learn to tune, you just want it to work. I can remote in, we can spend an hour, 2 hours. You can get in the car, drive around town, and I'll tune it for you. And it usually only takes 2 hours if you're breaking in a motor. We'll do a first call, get the engine running. You can break in your cam, all that kind of stuff. And then, they'll call me back the next day once they've changed the oil, adjusted the valves again. We'll get it started again, do all the basic tuning in the driveway, and we'll do a driving tune. In an hour on a driving tune, I can usually have you 95% of the way to complete.
Very cool.
And everybody is always super ecstatic from.
Well, I can imagine you spend all this money on this kit, and then all of a sudden it's not running right, and then all of a sudden spending an hour with you, it works out great. That's pretty cool. That's an awesome.
And that's the most rewarding part for me is they'll get in the car and they'll start driving it and just notice. Immediately, oh yeah, it might, with the carbs, it would do this or that. Mm-hmm. And then it's just smooth. And then through that hour, we start out just cruising around, putting around town, just making sure the fuel is where it should be. And then you work your way up into, making, first, second gear, and then second, third, and then third, fourth, and then just pulling through all the gears. And they're just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And that's just like when they're like, oh my God, it just works so well. And that's when I'm happy.
Yeah. They don't start questioning the money they spent anymore.
I have a lot of people I'll talk to 3, 4, 5 years later, and I'll ask, what they've done. And usually it's like, no, nothing. I haven't even got my laptop back out in the car. And I'm
just
like,
running
there's so
right.
much more. Yeah, there's so much more you could do. Like, you haven't touched the feature set. And they're like, it's better than it was. So I'm happy.
Yeah, right. That's the way I am.
All right. So let me ask you this. Do you have any cool projects in the work? Where's the dub shop going from here?
Yeah,
not to put you out there and to have you give away your secrets, but I mean,
probably the biggest thing I have, when I kind of first started, when I was working from home, I made it was called a cam sync. So it replaced your distributor with a sensor that would just tell the ECU where top dead center is, number one.
Okay.
So then the ECU is allowed to run sequentially, so you can fire one injector and one coil at a time, and it just, the wasted spark, going back to that conversation, it fires 2 cylinders at a time, 1 and 3 and 2 and 4, and it just bounces back and forth. It knows the engine cycle, but it doesn't know the engine position like in the complete engine cycle.
Yeah, it just knows it's at top dead center. It doesn't know what.
It just knows top dead center. Yep, and it uses that missing tooth on the crank to say, okay, we're starting over, and then it just bounces back and forth between 1 and 3 and 2 and 4.
Yeah, I remember making these tiny little trigger wheels for you. And
yep, so that was my first one, and it was just a single position, but I wanted to make this sensor do more, because most oftentimes, crank pulleys, everybody has their own pulley they already want to use. This would just, most daily driver people that aren't racing, I can take out the distributor and replace it with another unit, which is my mini cam sync version 2, which has a toothed wheel just like the crank does. It's more accurate than a distributor for your ignition timing, but a little bit less accurate than coming right from the crank.
You got the slop in the distributor
because you have the slop. Yep, there's less teeth. It's moving at half the speed, so it's just like it works. And you could do full sequential from this, or you can do wasted spark. But they wouldn't have to remove their crank pulley. This would just make my kit more plug and play.
So is this something that you're developing right now, or something that you're selling right now?
It's something I'm developing. I stopped making the version 1 because I wanted to finish the version 2.
Well, how long, what kind of time frame are you looking, or that you're planning on going to market with that one?
I mean, it's really close. I'm building a new circuit board that I got caught up on, and I need some outside help. I just haven't been able to find the right person yet.
Gotcha.
To get that done. The hardware side is pretty much done now that I can make my own tiny trigger wheels.
Right. That's
really the next thing I need to do, because I know Mancy Speed, he wants to not have customers pull off their crank for the water boxers. If they can just pull their distributor out and replace it with one of these, and they don't have to do the crank pulley, it's going to make the install, half the time. So you could get it done in probably, 3 or 4 hours.
So are there any other services or any other products that you want to talk about that you got going on here?
Well, I have so much stuff that I'm always working on. It's literally, you just have to watch my Facebook page, because I jump around so much. And just, you got to always create new things, keep people interested. So
most definitely. All right. So where can people find you? You mentioned Facebook. So what is the Dub Shop, or on Facebook?
The Dub Shop on Facebook, the Dub Shop on Instagram. thedubshop.com is my website, and you can find me. It's been on for a while, but and then also YouTube. I have some videos, older race videos, a couple new tutorials for just when I get a question so many times, I'll make a video, so cool. I can just take it off my plate when people are installing parts.
Awesome.
Dyno tuning, engine dyno tuning. The EFI stuff has been great for me on the engine dyno, because all the engines have to come out usually when I'm doing an install, so I can just put it on there and do most of the tuning before it goes back in the car.
Yeah, the dyno videos with your dyno and your whole setup are I like watching them. They're very
nice.
Cool.
Thank you.
I really enjoy that stuff.
All right. Did you have anything else that you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I think that's all we really. You can always follow us on Facebook, of course. It's Brew City Bug Talk on Facebook and on Instagram. We also have a YouTube channel that just started. It's just audio from the podcasts. You can always contact us at bcbugtalk@gmail.com if you do the email thing. or you can message us on Facebook or anything like that.
Yeah.
You got anything to finish up with?
Nope. You said it all.
I said it all. Okay. Fantastic.
Right. Well, thanks again, Mario, for being on the show.
Yeah. Thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And
have a good day.
That's it. Peace out. Don't forget to subscribe to VW Trends Magazine for all the latest and greatest in VWs around the world. Visit VWTrendsMagazine.com to subscribe.